Good morning. I'm here today with Markus Backes from the European Commission DG Energy. I would like to ask Markus, it looks like we are at an important crossroad now when it comes to European gas market design. What do you think? Are we done with the current regulatory framework we have, with the network codes now entering being finalized, basically, entering the implementation phase? Or is there still something to be done? Old, new issues?
Mm-hmm. Well, good news is, of course, that indeed we adopted all the network codes in gas. Just recently finished the network codes on tariff and the new one on CAM, covering also incremental capacity. So we can congratulate ourselves and say mission
yes.
accomplished. But
yes.
I would say if you speak to regulators on their experience, there's potentially always some change process needed in the future based on experience. And what is important now is, of course, to implement those adopted network codes correctly in the member states. So this is one part, the network codes. But you ask also about
new
what to be next, new
yes.
issues.
What can spice up our life going forward now?
Yes. Well, we are pretty happy with, let's say, market prices more converging. But the question is, of course, whether this will be the future as well, or whether we will have to adapt the overall framework. And for this purpose, we did commission a study being called Quo Vadis EU gas market, which takes a look into the future. And this was mainly triggered due to some parameters, so uncertainty about long-term capacity and long-term supply contracts.
Exactly. And the Quo Vadis study that you mentioned is indeed very timely, so another reason for congratulating the Commission. What this study is going to look into, among other things, is also, as you rightly mentioned, what will happen after the existing long-term contracts will expire. And if I'm not mistaken, the expiration date should fall around 2036. This is what we've been discussing today, and we will be discussing also in the afternoon. If you talk to stakeholders, my feeling is that the views are quite different. So you may have stakeholders saying that nothing will really happen after 2036. Most of the contracts will be renegotiated. Maybe they will not be oil index, but Tahab priced. And actually, there are instead other stakeholders who are really concerned about this change. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Is it a big change, or is it just business as usual?
Well, let's first distinguish between capacity and commodity. I think for capacity, we also have to differentiate between existing capacity and new capacity. So for new capacity, there was just the yearly auction in March, where there were on certain projects where new capacity was offered, indeed a long-term capacity demand to underpin this kind of investment. While for existing capacity, we've been seeing that the appetite is not that big, let's say. Now, whether this will change in the future or not remains to be seen, but at least we have some indication that, it's not really. To complete the picture, of course, we have a third category in there, so incremental capacity covered by long-term demand, existing capacity not really covered by long-term demand anymore, and we have PCI projects or security supply projects, which let's say are subsidized by European money and funds. So we have these three kinds of capacity projects and issues, and all have some different things to it, let's say.
All right.
So on the commodity part, we see also some trends. So we don't expect actually that long-term contracts will cease to exist, that we have no long-term contracts at all, but the nature will change. And the big question we need to ask, and that's also the challenging task for the consultants, what the real problem is. So whether the current framework is fine and we analyzed it and we can come to the conclusion, okay, that's fit for purpose, we can stay with it, or whether due to the changing structure we need to adapt, and I don't have an answer currently.
You have to wait for the end of the study, I suppose.
Yes, and I don't want to put the expectations too high on a study, but it's just the start of the debate and the discussions, I would say. So we'll need to see whether there are indeed challenges that we need to cover by changing a regulatory framework, but we are not that far yet. You ask about, let's say, potential future challenges as well. Well,
also, just outside this very restricted discussion about long-term contracts.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that could really pop up in the future and drive, steer a little bit the course of history of gas market design.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a general debate of the future role of gas, which is triggered by climate debates, and let's say there are already some projects going on in terms of analyzing what the infrastructure can do as a potential. Now, we as a Commission, we are not taking a role, we are not the advocates for gas or something, but we at least need to get the framework right, and we should get the best out of it, best out of the assets. What NSOC and NCE, for example, are doing now, they're just starting, is to take a comprehensive look not only at the gas, but also at the electricity networks, and see how the energy system as such
can be integrated.
Can be integrated. And I think this is, of course, a larger question, how we get the best out of both, so to say.
And that's a very interesting question, and it probably involves a lot of aspects, technology-wise, and let's say even political relations between electricity and gas structures, because we know that until now we can say that electricity and gas have been running on sort of parallel tracks. So it looks like they might converge at some point, as you said, and there's a lot of work to do, a lot of reflections to be made, I suppose. Yes.
Well.
And it's good to know that the Commission is starting on this. Very good. Thanks a lot, Markus, and congratulations.
Thanks.